Morning. Okay, thanks guys. Thanks for coming here. So we've been already talking quite a bit backstage. Maybe we can just try to continue it. Can you guys hear me okay down there? Yes. Yeah, okay, hopefully I'll be able to hear you. Right, so given that we've got like a pretty wide range of types of businesses here, I did want to kick off today by just getting you to give me the sort of elevator pitch, as they like to call it in the startup world, for what it is that you're doing with voice and voice and AI. You need a mic. You don't have a mic? Okay. Do you mind sharing?
Sure, no problem.
Can we get another mic so that we don't have to... Actually, we need 2 more mics. Do we have them?
One at a time.
Yeah, okay. We're going to do some mic sharing.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, good morning. Yes, so CISCO, we... I suppose the thing about saying, do we have a lot of voice as part of our strategy, I think it unfolds into 2 key areas, which are really big strategic priorities for the company. Number 1 is the unlocking the power of data, which translates into obviously machine learning, AI, which ultimately underpins a lot of the power and things you can do that can enable many things. Plus also driving a differentiated and unique and compelling customer and employee experience, and to really make that very intuitive. And actually you'll see that if you go to the CISCO booth looking at what we've done to introduce voice technology, voice recognition into our collaboration technology, WebEx Teams, allowing people to use their voice to really activate any collaboration experience.
Great, thanks.
So hi, I'm Steve Lucas, the CEO of MARKETO. We are a marketing automation technology firm, and on the AI and voice front, first and foremost is, about a year ago, we introduced a smart marketing or marketing operations assistant. And that's something that we integrated with Amazon on Amazon Alexa, where you can effectively ask it anything you want to know about your marketing campaigns, your ROI, and get that information back. But something that we're working on at MARKETO, which we're very excited about, is I think most people are used to the notion of a chatbot on a website. You go, you type in some information and get some information back. And we're actually working with a variety of companies that have AI or voice-based AI assistants to take chat to literally the next level, which is exactly what it implies. Have a voice conversation, be it on a website, through an app, whatever it may be, which I think is ultimately the next step beyond a chatbot. And on the AI front, in general, one thing that we focused on is a complete re-architecture, a complete change of the playbook for how marketing campaigns are created and executed inside of organizations. I think we're all used to going in and having a rules-based, human-defined way that we interact with customers at high volume through email, social, mobile, and the like. And what we've done is created an engine that automatically can curate or change content, digital channel, time of day in your marketing campaigns to create much more of a Darwinian effect in terms of how those things evolve.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. So when it comes to Google, for the past couple of years, we have been providing the right information to the right people, to hundreds of millions of people over the past couple of years. With voice, we have been able to go one step further in making it a lot more natural than what we have been doing it so far. When it was written, it started on desktop, moved to mobile, and now through voice. And what we see is there is an incredible appetite from the users to do it. Now, nearly 40% of the users of mobile phone use the assistant, and 1/3 of them use it on a daily basis. So it's moving to this very natural interaction using voice.
And I'm Tony from Walmart, and I would say the Walmart elevator pitch in this area is, it gets back to the problem that we're trying to solve for customers. I think for most of our existence, we've been almost singularly focused on saving people money, but in the last little while, our mission has broadened, and we're now focused on saving people money and saving people time. Saving people time means removing friction from the shopping experience, and we think voice is a great way to do that, especially when combined with personalization that really makes voice an easy way to an easy companion to other types of inputs and other ways of buying things.
Okay, right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm going to want to ask you the first question, if you don't mind, Tony. Now, backstage, you were saying to me that in the old, just a few years ago, the big question was, is Amazon going to kill Walmart? And you've managed to progress the conversation to Amazon versus Walmart. So I'm going to ask you, are you guys working on anything that would be an echo competitor? Would you ever build anything like that? Do you think you need to?
Well, we have a lot of competitors. We have a lot of great competitors. And I think that I wouldn't rule anything out for Walmart. But I would say right now we have a pretty broad network of partners. For example, we have a great partnership with Google in the US. And we are interested in just finding people with the right expertise that we can partner with what we do well to go and address the needs of our customers.
Okay, so no answer to, would you guys ever build a piece of hardware?
You never know.
I mean, do you think it makes sense for a company like Walmart to move into those areas? Or do you think that that's stretching too much in another direction and that you could... I mean, I think there's an argument to be made that do you need to do those things? Are they a loss leader to just bring in customers for other reasons? So, would you, could you, should you?
I think clearly the boundaries of what it means to be a retailer have really broadened. And you see us involved in a lot more types of those types of activities than you would have a decade ago. And we'll just see. We are working on all kinds of things. You saw our recent acquisition of Flipkart in India, and I think we'll continue to surprise folks with what we do.
Yeah. Okay. Sébastien, do you have a? I know that Google obviously is doing. I mean, Google is Google, so you're covering pretty much every aspect of what anyone might conceive of as a smart voice system. You're putting it into whatever permutation that might take. A lot of it, for now, I'm seeing is coming by way of Google services. But yesterday there was this interesting deal between Publicis and Microsoft to build Marcel, which is this big AI system with massive voice component to help them run their business, as you know. Are you talking to customers, like enterprise customers? I know Google's trying to really double down on enterprise. Would you guys ever consider building a kind of version of Google Home, for example, for a business like Walmart? As an example, just hypothetical.
I think we just need to go back to what's the benefit about what we were saying. At the end of the day, what we're all trying to achieve is make sure that we provide the right information, the right experience to every single users, and that's what we collectively are all working on. And I would, answer to your question on thinking that we already do it. If you have, and we talked about with Google Home, it's extraordinary because it's incredibly open, and we leave the choice to users. If you want to listen to the news, you can pick up what's your favorite news outlet and select which one, and it's open to any news outlet. In the US, it's open to any retailers, and really the ideas of users want choice, users are curious, and we need to build this open platform where we welcome any partnership. And over the past couple of years, I think what we have been incredibly proud, and specifically on Google Home, is the fact that we have been partnering with many brands, publishers to make it happen.
Yeah. Do you think, though, that you would ever see yourselves building services for companies? So Microsoft is almost, they're taking on almost a sort of, I could imagine Cisco doing this as well, as an enterprise business, obviously trying to build out your Google Cloud platform, essentially taking on the role of a systems integrator / consultancy, IT consultancy. Could you take all the expertise that you've picked up with Google Voice and start trying to build those solutions for businesses, or is that kind of outside of where Google wants to go?
I think I would kind of differentiate two problems we're trying to solve. Right. The first one is about the user experience and partnering with any brand, any partners on Google Home, and this is already happening. The second question is to be successful in this digital transformation, you need also to bring more and more cloud computing, AI, and on this one, the Google Cloud team has been on an incredible trajectory for the past couple of months. The number of deals we have been announcing recently in France with Atos and other is just exponential. And for anyone in the room, I invite you to come and see AI in action with what happened with Life Magazine and others that we have on the boat. So we are developing and we are providing to a lot more of large companies, including advertising agencies, some of these cloud solutions.
If I could just jump in
Yes,
for a second
please.
on that.
Yeah,
So
please do.
our experience with Google at MARKETO, so a year and a half ago, we made a strategic decision to move the entirety of MARKETO's global cloud infrastructure to Google Cloud Platform. So we're one of the largest, if not the largest, enterprise software company running on Google Cloud Platform today. And our evolution has been from...
Where did you come from? Like, did you leave Vibrate from somewhere?
we had a managed infrastructure, so it was managed cloud and now moving to GCP. And as we've done that, Google has made tremendous investments in MARKETO on driving transformation of our own platform to take advantage of all the innovations from machine learning platform to just running your technology. Now our evolution has been, we started with moving MARKETO infrastructure to give our customers global reach, a much more scalable technology. But the next steps that we've taken with Google, in fact, about 3 weeks ago, we launched a co-innovated product called Audience AI that takes who you market to on the right hand and looks for lookalike audiences in your marketing database on the left hand. And that's something we co-innovated with Google.
Does that have a voice component to it, or
not
no?
yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
How would a voice component work? And which is kind of my next question anyway, which is how much do you need a voice component now? I mean, we're talking here about voice, but it's a pretty valid question of do we need it? I mean, I kind of sometimes feel like it's just a gimmick. Sorry.
Maybe I mean, sorry.
No, that's all right. Well, I think that voice is, it is another channel, another UI or user experience. But to be clear, I mean, if you look at how often today, you know, to your point around how often you use your digital assistant on your phone, in the world of enterprise or consumer applications beyond that, it's coming. So it's notionally, you know, 10 years ago you would have said, why would I ask my phone what the weather is today? I'll just look outside. But the reality is that we all ask our phone what the weather is outside, and we do it all the time. And so the question of asking your phone today, it seems, well, maybe absurd to ask your phone, hey, what market should I be considering marketing to? Right. You will ask your phone that question.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're probably going, my feeling about all of that is it will become more natural when it's easier and it works better. Because the reason why it's awkward right now is because when I ask Siri the same question 100 times and she doesn't answer it correctly.
Well, it's like talking to
you know,
a teenager versus an adult. Eventually, you know, when you talk to someone and it makes sense, you'll talk to them. But until that point, you won't.
Yeah. Jeremy,
Well,
you were
and
going
I
to say
suppose
something,
that's
yeah.
really been the history of using voice, right? I mean, I think we've all dreamed of being able to use our voice to control things, even from the basics of just being able to dictate rather than type. You know, we've been dreaming about that for 30 years. And I think the reality is it's, you know, everyone wants to interact in different ways depending on the circumstance. So right now, most of this audience probably don't want to interact using voice. It probably wouldn't make a lot of sense. But there are plenty of circumstances where that makes a lot of sense and is much more intuitive and would be much more helpful and would just streamline things and make things, in the words of, I think you, Tony, frictionless. So the classic for us is, of course, the meeting experience, which most of us hate to be in so many meetings, and in fact,
I love conference calls.
You love conference calls?
I love them.
Do you? Wouldn't? So we did a survey back in November 2017, where we surveyed nearly 2,500 people across 10 countries.
I'm sorry to tell you, I didn't like conference calls. I know that's a big business for Cisco.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, and you know, we were looking at, you know, what do people think about having like a virtual assistant as part of the team meeting? Who takes the place of the person who is, you know, trying to make the notes, trying to make sense of the meeting. You know, you can imagine right from the basics of just kind of transcription, but through to potentially interpreting what has happened in the meeting, and maybe even at some level starting to intercept and say, look, I understand you're talking about this topic. How about introducing, you know, some more information and some intelligence into the conversation, which you may not be thinking about.
Are you working on this now?
We are absolutely working on that.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Because, you know, have you heard of Uber Conference?
Yes.
So Uber Conference is, you know, like a hot company. They're like ex-Google people. And it's really frustrating to me because they have a lot of cool stuff about them. I know that they're probably a big competitive force for you guys, but I'm always frustrated because I always ask if, you know, for my details for a transcription of the conversation. They provide so little information at the end of the call. I'm always hoping that for some reason they'll have popped up with a new innovation for exactly what you're talking about, because you do want that. I essentially want them to do a little bit of my job for me because I'm always taking notes at these calls, you know, in interviews. You kind of wish there was something a little more intelligent. I totally agree with you.
You imagine a scenario where, you know, at the extreme end, maybe you can imagine that the conversation is happening and really there's somebody missing who would be able to help. How about the virtual assistant actually suggested that there may be someone who should join the meeting to help the conversation move along, to make it more productive?
Absolutely, I love that idea. Okay, I have a question for you, Tony, but I just wanted to say one thing very, very quickly. I think for those of you who have been sitting here already, you know that you should be feeding some questions in. I've got a couple in here that are awesome, and I'm going to be asking them in a second because they're really relevant. As and when they make sense to fit into the conversation, I'll put them in. So please send your questions in so we can do that, because I'd love to make this useful for you guys as much as hopefully it's already interesting and fascinating conversation. Okay, so Tony, do you think the voice is a gimmick? I mean, do you think it's necessary? Do you feel like Walmart's missing a trick by not doing more with voice than it is? Or do you kind of feel like it's premature? Because we've talked through where it could go, which is amazing, but also where it isn't today. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, we definitely do not think voice is a gimmick. We think voice is going to be a key way that the customer is going to want to interact with us. But I think that it just needs to evolve and become more efficient. And I'll give you an example. And by the way, I think that will happen as AI continues to develop and as we can deliver a higher level of personalization. Today, the way it works, you know, there's a lot of back and forth in the process, a lot of questions and answers between the user and the voice device. And I think as time goes by, a more personalized experience will develop where the device that you're interacting with already knows more and more about you, and when that happens, we'll be able to reduce the amount of back and forth in the process. The more that happens, the less friction in the process, then I think the more people will use it. But I don't think it will ever be the sole way that people interact with us. I'll give you an example. One thing that customers really like to do is build a shopping list through voice. But a lot of customers, once they've built that list, then they like to go look at it visually and make sure that it came out the way they want it. Or take a higher involvement purchase like a television, where maybe there's a little bit more research involved. There may be some voice in the process, but the customer may also want to read and do some research, you know, on their phone. So voice is, in our opinion, not a fad by any means, but it just needs to continue to mature in its ability to reduce friction.
Do you feel that you guys, I mean, now that you're picking up Flipkart, you have Jet, you know, generally there's definitely some amassing of deep tech talent going on at Walmart, especially in the last several years. But, you know, kind of interfacing with, you know, when I speak with a lot of companies and across the range of industries, really, there's been this great divide where you've got like some real powerhouses really driving the kind of conversation on where voice or AI are going. Google is in that group, Amazon, Apple, Facebook to some extent, but really Microsoft. There are some large tech companies that are really pushing it. Then there are a lot of smaller tech companies that are doing aspects of it, but then there are a sea of companies out there who need this stuff, who are unable to realize it because that is just the leap between finding the right people and building the right products is so gigantic. I mean, you know, do you guys feel that challenge yourselves, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I would tell anybody, Tell your children to go major in engineering.
And then get a job at Walmart. Okay, listen, I'm going to ask a couple of questions from here. I'm not going to direct them to any one specific person. I want one of you to just leap in and answer it, if you could. Okay, this is an anonymous one. What do you think, and this is a great question. So I don't know if you guys followed the news, what happened. I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before, but Alexa sending users conversations without their consent. Amazon claimed it was an accident. What is your opinion? Jeremy, you have something to say.
Well, I read about that yesterday, and obviously, I mean, this is exactly the sort of thing that undermines people's confidence in what companies are doing with data. Not to say that Amazon is doing anything wrong here, because I know they tried to explain this out in terms of the way the voice was interpreting what was going on in the room, thinking it was then asking to send this conversation to someone in no context. Who knows whether that's right or wrong, but I think there are two things here. One is, you know, we need absolute transparency about what companies are actually doing with our data, and you need to understand the consequences of using this technology. But I also think that it shows you that, you know, the natural language understanding needs to improve over time, so that this becomes less and less and less likely. Because honestly, if this is just an interpretation problem of what was happening in the room, then you know, you would hope that that would be solved by the technology just becoming sophisticated enough to not do that.
Yeah, I mean, do you find, Steve, just as a sort of, you know, because you work with so many customers on voice solutions, so you're not so much building it directly for yourselves, but you're sort of then throwing it out to your client base. Do you find that some of those sort of shortcomings of voice are keeping people away from trying to do more ambitious projects? Because those mess ups can be catastrophic, you know.
Well, I think so unequivocally, information, like transparency on what you're doing with this data is number one. And so it really doesn't matter what industry you go into and what use case. If I don't understand how it's being used, where it's being used, and you're not fully transparent with me, it doesn't matter whether it's voice or whatever. I mean, we have problems with just data today and the treatment and curation and protection of it, hence GDPR, right? That's I think the first of many things to come. We're going to see this massive wave of information regulation and protection, and I think clearly Europe in general is leading the way there, which is very, very positive. But voice in general, the capability today far outstrips, exceeds companies' abilities to fully deploy it, partially based on trust, number one. That's certainly an issue. But also, I think, you know, a comment you made is that these engines have to have context. They have to understand who I am, what I value, what I care about. Otherwise, it's just in a generic conversation. So that's why you continue to ask your phone what the weather is, and that's that. And there's no follow-on question. So I think voice has a long time to mature, and I'm really excited to see the whole, you know, Google Voice Assistant and Microsoft Voice Assistant have a conversation with each other and see how that one goes. But, you know, I think the bottom line is voice has a future. It is a channel. It will not be the channel, but it will interact in every way. And I think the future of voice, which this is where, you know, to me, if you think just 5 years from now, the question will be is how meaningful, this is going to be a weird one, but how meaningful of a conversation am I having with my phone? And you're going to have that. It's
like that movie, Her, She,
yeah.
Her.
I hope it's not that meaningful, but yes, I think it will be, you know, both in a business context and in a consumer context.
Okay, Sébastien, this is actually probably more directed to you, but I'd love to hear other people's kind of feedback. It's another question from the audience. I'm going to say your name because you've put it here, Randy Cotton from the Lookup, CEO of Lookup. So Randy asks, really relevant question about at Google I/O. This was a bit of news from last week. People started wondering about the conversations, the voice-based conversations that were happening on the phone, and how staged were they, or how real were they? How much did the business know? You know, what is the ethical question there that should be raised, and how are you guys talking about it at Google? But I'd love to hear other people's feedback on that too.
you want me to start?
Yes, please. And I hope I'm not putting you on the spot with it, but
No.
yeah.
I mean, this is a great question, and I think really there are two elements to answer them. I think the first one is realize what's happening on how we collectively, when I see the number of mobile phones on your knees today, are using our phone as an extension, as an assistant to what we do. Half of the queries that we have on the Google Assistant is about, is this shop open? Find me the number of that. How do I go to this place? We expect our phone to be this extension. We expect our phones to be our assistant in our daily life to make everything we do faster and simpler. So that's really what we are hearing from the users and from the way we use our mobile devices. And as we progress, as we hear more, we have more opportunities, including going one step further. If you want to book a table at 9 tonight in a restaurant, that was the demo that was done at I/O, having your assistant going the extra mile and doing the reservation. So I think on one hand, as users, there is something exciting about having more and more of this assistant. But on the other hand, it goes back, I think, to the single most important question, and probably why VivaTech is so special, because it's a collective answer. It's an answer on the ethical side, on the creative side, on the tech side, and how we all work together. And I think the one line which is extremely important is being in control and being incredibly transparent. I think we would, last week's question was just, this is what it would look like. I think the limit is that we will want, as users, to know who do we speak with and be in control to the same extent that we've LGPD.
How would you, if I could just be a bit boring, how would you approach that though? Because I mean, it becomes, there's something problematic because a lot of today, terms and conditions are very long. I don't know how many people actually ever read them before they agree and continue. How are you going to, I want to hear you read them all. Well done, Steve. I'm just wondering how you would even do that. So you would pick up the phone, and before the conversation even begins, you're speaking to a bot. Hi, I'd like to make a reservation, please. How would you even do it?
So I think again it will be a collective answer. I think this is an answer that we will have with on the ethics side, on the creative side, on the tech side, and I think a lot of creative groups, and we have some creative agency in the room, will come up with some of this solution. For the past couple of years, when you speak with a phone service, very often you have the question, this call is going to be recorded, and
yes,
it has been done for many years, so it's not something completely new. It has happened on billions of phone calls over the past couple of years. I think this is to be decided, but with one very clear line, which is making sure we are transparent on who we speak with and keep the control there.
I think, part of it is, and I certainly don't want to put this back on the user. We're all here at a tech conference, so to some degree, many people in tech kind of assume that when I'm talking to a voice assistant, it's not just this magical little cone that my information is going somewhere. So I'm always a little surprised to hear people shocked that this data is actually captured and stored. There's a reason behind it. And by the way, these voice assistants, which are not $99 or $50, the actual hardware, I can assure you it's much more expensive to manufacture than that. It's the data behind it that provides value. I will say, I think Google's missing a huge market. You guys did the whole, set up a dinner thing. I think if you worked with dating sites where you could send voice breakup conversations where, hi, I'm calling to break up with you, Susan just doesn't want to see you anymore. I think that's fantastic. It could be very empathetic.
Well noted. Thank you.
Just note that. Take it back to Google. But I do think that again, what I want to come back to is these experiences have to be contextual. The point that you made, which I think is incredibly valuable, is if it doesn't save me time, if it doesn't save me money, if it's not making my life easier, it's kind of irrelevant. I'm not going to use it. But as these technologies become more context aware of who I am, what I care about, what I value, number one, and then number two, make my life easier, faster, quicker, the adoption is going to be ridiculously pervasive.
And I would just build on that. If you are able to deliver on that.
The dating thing or the?
No, yeah. If you're able to really save the customer time and take friction out of their lives, they will, and you are transparent in the way that you handle their data, they will opt in because they're looking for that value add.
I think that's true, and just as a last point to add, I think one of the reasons people want to know they're talking to a bot rather than a real person is that I think you also want to make the choice about how you're going to interact, because you're probably more prepared to be abrupt, rude, prepared to repeat stuff if you think you're talking to a bot rather than if you're talking to a real person, maybe. So
I think the more realistic the voice becomes, the less that will happen, though. I mean, those demos were mind-blowing, and I've seen some of the demos of Google's voice, the voices that they're working on. They're incredibly natural. So
it comes back to it
with
feeling
the sighing and
right.
the ums and
yeah, I think when it feels right, when it feels intuitive, and to the point about it is actually enhancing the customer experience and your experience, then you're more prepared to take it on. As soon as it becomes annoying or is getting in the way, then it's going to be.
So we're now at the very end. Can I just ask with one close-off question of a, sort of a yes/no sort of question of, do you think that if we could kind of crystal ball 10, 15 years into the future, maybe not even that long, do you think voice will be an important thing, consideration for every industry, or do you think there are some that might be, spared the question?
Boy, I would say, if you just ran down a list of a lot of different industries, you could almost immediately pinpoint ways that this could take friction out of their customer experience.
Yeah.
And anywhere that that's possible, then I think it will happen.
Yeah. Sébastien, yes.
I think it will change. 15 years from now, you will be constantly having, it won't be voice, it will be conversation, and it will be continual with your phone.
Phone, not your watch.
Well, I hope you're not talking to yourself.
Earpiece. Yeah.
So maybe to add on to that, I don't think we'll even have a phone.
Yeah,
so maybe we'll go there.
Yeah.
But I do think that there are use cases in every industry, and I think it will become more and more pervasive.
Okay. Thanks so much, gentlemen. Really
Thank you very
interesting.
much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.